We're starting off today here at the Tortillas camp, in Kenya. We have a few beautiful marabou storks and of course some baboons. It's myself, Kenneth Gamble. I'll be your guide for the session. As always, the show is live and interactive, so please feel free to send through your questions and comments. It's always wonderful to answer and discuss certain topics. And yeah, let's see what the show has in store for us today. I must say the marabou storks are looking quite regal as can be. Of course, they are members of the ugly five, so beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You can also see the quilias are still here in vast numbers. I think just to the right behind the marabou storks there's possibly quite a few in the trees there. I can't completely make, I do see some birds moving around, but also does look like a certain type of fruit hanging from the vines there. Just tough to figure out what is possibly a fruit or is actually birds. Apologies for that, everyone. The camera is giving us a few challenges. At least we got timber at our disposal. It's looking quite beautiful. I always love the look of these pans. The conveyor belt of elephants, if you will, has already started today. It's quite interesting. We often see them at that one point at the back of this pad. I don't know why they like to dig there. See, there's also an nyala in the thicket behind it. But yeah, I'm not sure what that elephant chooses to drink there. As far as I know, there isn't. Well, the water inlet is much closer to the hide. So I wonder what makes them go drink there. What I did want to say with Tortillas camp, why we might be seeing those marabou storks there, is the quilias are more than likely nesting and or obviously they're roosting, but they might also be nesting in that area, and the marabou storks in turn will be attracted to the bountiful food supply. Not only the quilias themselves, which they may opportunistically catch, but also fledglings or nestlings. I've seen it a few times in the Kruger National Park in the summer months when they also roost in certain areas. There's quite a gathering of eagles and storks looking to make the most of the opportunities. Well, it looks like that elephant's had its full of water for the morning. Off to go feed. Looks like quite a young animal. Possibly a cow, I'm not 100% sure, I couldn't see too well. Our elephant has disappeared, and we're going to head over to Founders a bit. We've got some giraffes waiting for us. Looking quite pretty here at Mantis Founders Lodge in the Eastern Cape. Always nice to have the giraffes around. With the habitat type or tree type, the thickets that one gets in the Eastern Cape, it's always nice to see the giraffes towering over it. It really has got a pretty look to it. I'll be in the Eastern Cape myself next week. I must say the weather looks quite pleasant at the moment, but next week when I'm there it might be snowing, or very cold nonetheless. I can't say I'm too excited for the extremely cold temperatures, but always a blessing to be in nature in different parts of the country. Marisol, you are asking or saying the trunk is incredibly strong, but what is the most delicate or surprising thing you've seen an elephant do with it? So I think for me, which is always quite remarkable, is watching an elephant use its trunk to pick up something tiny, and that precision that they use with the tips. It's quite amazing because that same trunk that they can use to push over trees, etc., can be used for such sensitivity or precise activities. Is amazing. Of course, something I never saw myself, but on a camping trip, we went to bed and in the middle of the night woke up to a tap that had been turned or opened, and it was opened by an elephant. And I think that will always stick with me for the rest of my life, how a wild elephant walked through a campsite, opened a tap to get a drink of water, and moved on. The giraffes are looking quite happy and peaceful. Of course, I think these giraffes have quite a peaceful existence here at Mantis, or Founders Lodge. No elephants to bully them, and also I don't think the lions of the Eastern Cape will be bothering them either. They tend to hunt quite differently in the Eastern Cape. They don't necessarily form the large prides that we're used to in parts of the Kruger or elsewhere. Birdseye, you are saying if humans and giraffes both have exactly 7 cervical neck vertebrae, how do theirs get so massive without snapping? I think the short answer behind that is just purely how it's reinforced. I mean, our neck vertebra might look small and delicate. A giraffe ones would follow the same blueprints, but just be a lot more bigger and very strongly reinforced. But that's correct, they do have the same 7 neck vertebrae, or the same number of vertebrae as we do. But yeah, each vertebra is enormously elongated, and some of them can be up to 25 centimeters long. So that's what stops them from snapping. They're incredibly thick and strong and elongated, and then in turn that large structure allows for powerful muscles, ligaments and tendons to attach to and join, so that further strengthens it. And just on top of that, those vertebrae are also quite specifically shaped for their to spread the forces quite efficiently. If you think about how giraffes also use their necks, the way bulls fight with each other and swing their necks around, it's quite important. So yeah, the similarities maybe do end at the number of vertebrae, but thereafter it's quite specialized and unique to suit the purpose. Quite a bit like a suspension bridge, long, but it's got all the support structures in play to make sure it withstands the forces. We've had a singular zebra come past. I'm sure there is maybe a few nearby. This is merely just the one we can see on camera. Also pretty sure our rhinos are lounging about nearby. I was going to say, we can definitely hear someone splishing and splashing. It's of course the zebras. Very interesting to see how relaxed the giraffes are here at Founders Lodge. But yeah, speaks to a number of reasons. They don't have to be as alert as their old Dornwall cousins, always on edge. I see the zebra tend to behave quite similarly to their cousins in Kenya. Walk straight into the middle of the pan to get to the water, and in turn end up stirring it up, but the joys. I must say it's actually quite a bigger herd of zebra than I thought. I maybe thought we'd maybe see about 5 or so, but it's quite a potent number of zebra. Nice to have them coming past. See, there's a question that's popped up. I do apologize, I will not be able to, or I'm struggling to correctly pronounce the username, but it looks like petrol arrows. Anyway, aside from that, you'd like to know or if elephants would push over telephone and electricity poles, considering that they push over trees so easily. So yeah, of course they can. It's not something they do deliberately very often. I would say if they're doing it, it's more maybe out of a naughty streak or a testosterone fueled rage. If you look at how an elephant can push over a tree, and a really big, strong, mature trees with relative ease or a bit of effort, a telephone or electricity pole, especially if it's made of wood, you know, that's quite easy for them. So it might happen that they may be scrubbing or scratching against it and they unintentionally break it, but yeah, if they had to put in a bit of effort, it would not be a challenge at all. I mean, a tree like that, a pole like that is not as reinforced as a tree might be with its roots, etc. I mean, in some parts of Africa, elephants do occasionally damage fences, poles, or water infrastructure, even buildings. So they're not normally destructive for the sake of it. Sometimes their strength is just quite immense, and like I said, it could be sometimes by accident, or a bull might be in a bit of must, or a younger bull might be a bit boisterous, and they get up to nonsense. There are ways of preventing it or preventing the damage. Some reserves obviously fence off those areas, or they position rocks around the base of the poles. I mean, not super pointy, sharp rocks. I think jagged would be the better word, but obviously then the elephants can't stand there or get too close. But yeah, it is quite interesting to see the way in which we have to protect infrastructure sometimes from elephants. They are quite well known for pulling water pipes out of the ground. Obviously their sense of smell is just so powerful. They can detect and hear water moving underground, so sometimes when they are in the search for that fresh water, and that doesn't mention they will go to get it. I'm sure every game ranger or warden's nightmare when you have to repair infrastructure like that. I remember a while ago there was a lodge somewhere in the Sabi Sands, I think, that it's kind of in a way built into the ground, and yeah, so it's quite pretty, and on top is indigenous vegetation, etc. And on top of one of the rooms there was actually an elephant bull standing on top of it. It was quite interesting. I can't necessarily remember the name of the lodge, but very nice, funny. And just popped over to Rosie's pan now. It's wonderful to be here on time as the elephants move in, especially a breeding herd like this. Can't see any very tiny calves, but there are a few youngsters here. And it's always quite nice with Rosie's pan that you can really almost see the whole waterhole from one shot. See how the resident hippo has not moved back into Rosie's pan as of yet. I am sure, considering all the rainfall we've had in the area, there's more than sufficient water sources before he'll be forced to move into his temporary home for the dry season. Bush is definitely getting drier, but I must say all the trees and shrubs are looking very green and vibrant still. It's only really the grass that has started to yellow and dry out a bit, which of course is quite natural for grass this time of year. It's gone through its life cycle. It's not a perennial, or I must double check myself now, but they only live for one season. I always get confused with the word perennial and annual, because we also speak of perennial, non-perennial rivers. But yeah, so often as temperatures change, those signal certain changes in the grass, and once they've flowered and made their seeds, their life cycle is complete. Paddy, you'd like to know, how do local communities and farmers coexist with elephants, especially since elephants can be quite destructive to crops? So yeah, coexisting with elephants is one of the biggest conservation challenges in Africa. I think that's probably been at the forefront of the elephants' decreased range in certain... There's quite a few reserves throughout Africa, but it's only in the last couple decades where elephants have started to be reintroduced, but they were quite heavily persecuted and chased out of their range due to the human conflict side of things. But yeah, elephant herd can cause quite a considerable amount of damage to crops, fences and water infrastructure, as I was mentioning earlier, and that's just in one night, of course. So yeah, different communities tend to use different approaches. South Africa is quite unique in the way that all our reserves are fenced. I don't know really of any open reserves. So obviously having a good fence is a great way to prevent human-animal conflict, especially in the case of elephants. Your fence needs to be quite strong to keep an elephant in. They will test it, and even then they will break them at times. Only unfortunate side of things are fences disrupt the natural movement of animals and the ecosystem, but there are some positives like preventing poaching and really ruling out conflict. I mean, it's for that reason that the Kruger eventually fenced its boundaries on the one side, just to reduce human-animal conflict, etc. But in other parts of Africa, there was a documentary I remember watching quite a bit, but they make use of, you can use chili fences, but also they take dung, which they mix with a number of different pungent herbs and chilies specifically, and they light these on fire. They kind of make like little briquettes, which they ignite, and the smoke wafts. Obviously that chili oil is as disruptive to elephants as it is to people, but that works quite well. There's been a lot of research done with beehives. Elephants are very careful of bees, so obviously keeping bee, or you can almost make like a boundary or border of beehives, and that will also deter elephants. Of course, obviously bees go to sleep at night, so elephants are very clever. Also watchtowers and early warning systems are employed, so if a herd starts to move in, they will be chased out, or they can use noise, etc., just to deter them from the area.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
Hi, I'm Cedric Dold, Wild Earth presenter and private guide. I'd love you to join me on safari. In September, I'll be at Valgevonden for a beautiful spring safari. And in November, I'll be tracking Wild Earth's famous leopards here in the Sabi Sands. Come and share the wildlife, the stories and the adventure with me. Book now and let's go on safari.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Would you like to know what an elephant's favorite food is? You could ask me questions like that in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive from the heart of Africa. The hippopotamus over here. Watch Safari Live and connect with nature.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
It's the type of weather that makes you very unused to cold winters. quite mesmerizing just watching all this elephant herd just go about their business. See, that one's now dribbling water onto the ground for some reason. Wemby, you were asking, when a big bull elephant approaches, sometimes guides turn the engine off and other times they leave it running for a quick getaway. How do you judge whether the sound of the engine will soothe or aggravate an approaching elephant? This is just out of my opinion, and I'm not saying I'm the most experienced person around. I don't professionally guide for a living, but I do spend a lot of time in the bush and the Kruger itself. But the baseline rule is reading the elephant and how you approach it. So it's just about understanding their body language. Is their head low, below their shoulders? Are they feeding? Are they? If they raise that head and they start to look alert, that's a sign that they're uncomfortable. Of course, at a sighting, you turn your engine off just to keep it peaceful and quiet and enjoy the sighting. I think in each reserve it's quite different. Obviously parts of the Kruger where elephants are exposed to tourist vehicles day in and day out, I don't think the sound of the engine necessarily aggravates them. It's quite a different thing though once you start revving the engine, apologies, and stuff like that. An engine idling probably won't annoy them very much, but yeah, it is a bit unpleasant. It takes away from the naturalness of the scene. But yeah, I myself will just analyze and check the situation first before switching off my engine, or how the animal looks, or how they feel, or what they're up to, and then you can make a decision from there. Bulls I'm always quite a bit careful with, just to see what they're doing or where they're going. Also, there's a number of things. I also find some people will often park right in the way or in the path at which elephants walking, and that will obviously also not necessarily always upset them, but I think always liken it to people. We don't really like it when someone blocks our way, so try not to do the same to a large terrestrial mammal. I'll just quickly come over to Tau. There's plenty of action here. I see a heron, a crocodile, for now just one, and a zebra going about their business. But one of my golden rules always, of course, is if a elephant bull is a must, I would say all rules are off the table. Make sure you don't get into a situation where you can corner or chase you. I wouldn't necessarily turn my car off. Or you could turn your car off just to watch, but you need to see what he's doing. But yeah, the big thing is just don't allow yourself to get into a situation where he can corner you or get too close, because that's when they are quite unpredictable. I know there's a video that's doing the rounds of a very calm elephant that all of a sudden lost his cool and tusked the vehicle. No one was hurt. But I must say, when I watched the footage, that bull to me looked like he was in must. Just looking at his back leg looked a bit wet to me, so I think he was in must. Also, there was actually a follow-up video from National Parks where he also chased a ranger the next day. So I think it was just a bit of must. Zebras are being very social. Rosie, you were asking if zebra alarm calls sound like domestic dogs to me sometimes. They do sometimes. I think when you're very in tune and used to it and you've lived a couple years in the bush, your brain automatically goes to zebra, since it's quite unique. But off the bat, it does often sound a bit like a dog barking, or it's an interesting call. But and we do refer to it as a bark, essentially. I must say, if we're talking of calls that really sound like domestic dogs, is kudus and nyalas or bushbuck. They give an alarm call, which that really does sound like a dog barking at you. And they can be so stealthy or stand so still in thick bush. And I've had a couple times where I've walked past and had a nyala or bushbuck bark at me, and sometimes you get quite a fright. Martin, you're asking if I live close to a reserve. If so, how do I keep my pets away from the wildlife? So I do live on a small property which is known as a wildlife estate. So it's a number of houses throughout a property with animals on it, and then green spaces in between. I don't have any dogs, but people on the estate with dogs, their yards or parts of their yards are fenced to keep the pets away from the wildlife. Also, if you walk your dog, it must be on a leash. And our estate is one of the few that does allow people to have cats, but they must also stay on your property. Easier said than done. I have a cat that I inherited way back from university. So I go to great effort to prevent my cat from affecting the animals of the outdoors. He's got a very colourful type of collar called a birdie bib, so that animals or any birds or small animals can see him coming, so it prevents a cat from being stealthy. But I generally keep them in the house, and they are quite also low on the food chain if you consider some of the other animals moving around, like pythons, leopards, caracals, civets. So there are quite a few bigger, more dangerous, and there's also very big birds of prey like the crowned eagle. So it is in your best interest to keep a close eye on your pets. In a few of the other estates there are roaming leopards, and they from time to time do catch people's dogs. Oh, our grey heron just caught something there. I don't think we'll see it too nicely. Might catch a look now. Seems like he swallowed it quite quickly. But I think at the end of the day it's about responsible pet ownership when you live in a quite a natural environment or wild environment, to try to limit their impact, and that your lifestyle or your pets don't have detrimental effects to any animals you are living around with. It's actually quite interesting to note how a lot of the animals will react to domestic pets. Giraffes can become quite defensive, same with zebras, inyalas, warthogs, etc. So yeah, you don't want your pets to get hurt either. Had an impala flying past there. I'm sure he is busy rutting and either fighting off some competition or trying to impress the ladies. I must say we've got quite a few zebras moving through. Of course we're only seeing a smaller section of Tau, and the rest of the plains are to the right of where we're looking, so more than likely there's quite a few zebra out there. Koala Joe, you'd like to know what is the white patch to the left there by the zebras. So obviously just a bit of a barren piece of soil, which is likely due to a lot of trampling and its proximity to the water's edge, but we can actually see the zebras are currently licking that bare patch of white soil. So it's more than likely quite a high alkaline soil with minerals and quite a high pH, so it'll be salty. So that's why we see the zebra actually licking it now. It's a bit of like taking your multivitamin tablet. So that's what's going on there. But generally that type of white color that you see tends to indicate a high level of salts, and obviously there's many different salts in nature, so not necessarily your table salt, but normally high pH soils tend to have that white pale color to them, and due to that very high pH, it's only a few specialized plants that are actually able to grow on soils like that. But I think it's also standing out quite a bit just because of its proximity to the water's edge. Anyway, we're going to pop on back to Tembe and see what's going on there. This is a very nice close-up, having this elephant bull in all his glory smack bang in front of the camera. He's having a really great mud bath. It's so fantastic having the elephants quite close up, especially when the cameras are able to pick up some of the sounds. It's quite immersive. Seems like he's on his way to show some dominance. I don't think that's a cow necessarily, but looking at her head, it could possibly be a cow. It's quite interesting that she's on her own. Massive size disparity between the two of them. I at first thought it was a young bull, but just looking at their head, it's quite square and box-like. It makes me actually think it is a cow. Ah, that makes sense. There's the rest of the herd there, and this bull is of course interested in any females that might be in estrus. Looks like he's just chased off a bit of a younger bull there. Quite a bit of head shaking going on between, well, with the one bull there, just trying to establish his dominance in size. The other bull doesn't seem to be too concerned. So it's funny how the behavior goes out the window once the females are in the vicinity. And I know you'd like to know, would using mud on our skin have the same results? So to a degree, yes. Mud will always act as a natural sunscreen, moisturizer and insect repellent. Obviously it's making a protective barrier or layer, so that blocks sunlight, slow water loss from your skin because it's not exposed openly to the heat and air. And obviously it's a bit of a challenge for a biting insect to try bite through that. But yeah, the difference why elephants rely on it so much more is just they have much less bodily hair than we humans do, and they don't sweat the same that we do. So we have kind of different ways of protecting and cooling our skin. But yeah, if you were marooned or surviving in the bush, it would be a great resource if you didn't want to get sunburnt and also cool off. If you think about it, also mud tends to stay moister for longer compared to water, which would naturally dry up a lot quicker on your skin. Actually, it appears like this cow is a tuskless cow. I remember the few times I went to Tembe myself, there are a couple of tuskless cows. It is something that's popped up in the gene pool. Obviously these elephants were persecuted many years ago due to civil wars in Mozambique and human-animal conflicts in the region. Of course, the Tembe elephant bulls have got very good genes for large ivory, so that issue would balance itself out. But there does, and of course, this gene is generally much more prevalent in females than it is in bulls. I don't think it's a cause for concern, but it is interesting how humans can negatively impact certain genetics. It is, of course, a natural gene, but through poaching can rear its head quite rapidly. But I see this cow isn't actually tuskless, just got a very short, small little tusk there. So, looks can be deceiving at first. Quite a small little family group. The bulls didn't seem to irritate them too much. They were relatively calm, but you can see how their body language changes a little bit. The bulls do certainly put the cows on edge, especially with their calves nearby, if things get a bit rowdy. Ninja Turtle, love the name. You'd like to know if I've ever seen other species successfully stand their ground against an elephant. I think we humans are probably one of the few to do it successfully. Of course, sometimes it doesn't always work out, but I think it perplexes elephants greatly that us two-legged naked apes are willing to stand up against them. It depends a lot. If it's a big mature bull, generally they're going to win. They know they've got the size, etc. on their side. But even then, yeah, sometimes they can be a bit perplexed if the other animal doubles down and stands its ground. Yeah, off the bat, I think only other animal to really stand their ground would be a lion, and I think it would be at a kill. I think at the best of times, a lion will generally push off and just rather avoid the confrontation and doesn't want to take a risk getting hurt. But sometimes lions will stand their ground, especially a big male, but it's generally when they've got something worth fighting for, like a kill. But elephants will go out of their way to chase lions off if they come across them. Rhinos will sometimes stand their ground, but normally it's going to go in the elephant's favor. Same with a hippo. I think a lion is the only other animal that would really fight back and not give up so easily. And then of course us humans. But yeah, that's one of the places where that golden rule comes in: whatever you do, don't run. As soon as you turn your back and run away from an elephant, they will more than likely chase and trample you. You've got a better chance of standing your ground and just bluffing in a way. Obviously it's a bit different when you're with armed guides. In a very serious situation you can protect yourselves, but yeah, most of the time those situations are diffused purely just by standing your ground, and often the elephant's not entirely sure what to do when that happens, because it doesn't happen very often. But easier said than done. Anyway, elephants have all meandered off, and we're going to go to tortillas for a bit. Ooh, that's stunning. We've got our crowned cranes here again. I'm sure they were here earlier, just merely out of sight. And these are some really stunning, beautiful birds. I think it's so awesome that this pair is around here at full time for us to enjoy and see. And I get excited sometimes when we go to the Wangi cams and or Hwange, however you pronounce it, in Zimbabwe, when we get to see the crown cranes, but it's quite a treat to see them so regularly in Kenya. And we also just had an egret come past. Looks like he's got something in his mouth. He's busy washing it off a bit. Looks like a fish or a frog. I think it's a frog. So he's about to have his Sunday lunch. I'm not entirely sure on the species of egret. I really think it's a frog. I can't figure out if it's sometimes a fish or a frog. But I think I see two dangling legs. It has certainly expired. And then we've got a yellow-billed stork coming in, also busy foraging. It's actually always very interesting to watch how they forage. He moves his beak from side to side and tries to disturb any fish or amphibians with his feet. Sometimes they'll also raise the one wing up to kind of herd or chase the aquatic creatures towards their bill or open beak. Some fantastic.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
Bada bang, bada boom. Oh, she's going to run after impalas. She's running after impalas. All right, everybody, that is our cue.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
Auntie Jackie, you'd like to know if the Goliath heron is the tallest bird. I believe that title is for the ostrich. They are the tallest bird. But I mean, that being said, a Goliath heron is still incredibly large. Now this egret's snapped up another poor, unfortunate amphibian. 2 for 2, doing quite well. I'm sure the frogs are not too happy though. But that's the way things go. I do think this is maybe a great egret. Obviously identifying your egrets depends on a few key features, and that's what a pair of binoculars I'll show you those details. I can't see too well when you're looking to split your great and intermediate egrets. And this is without assuming there's a few egret species I'm not aware of necessarily in Kenya. You look at the gape, and then there's also a few patterns on the legs. Yep, there goes the frog down the hatch. See the yellow-billed stalkers. The side of this is also quite a good spot to try find some lunch, and he's also going to try his luck. Obviously quite different hunting techniques. I think your egret would be the epitome of precision. He'll obviously be quite quick and lightning fast. I think in the top, there's a hammerkop in the top right as well. So clearly a lot of birds making the most of the opportunities here. I don't think it's a good day to be a frog in this waterhole. It's interesting to note, it seems like the marabou storks have also disappeared, and they would also be quite happy to join in on this feast of opportunity. See the stork also. Oh, he's got a second one there. That might be a fish though. I don't think that was a frog. Quite quick and rapid. It's very interesting to see the two different techniques, whereas your egret will wait to see something. There we could see a good example of the stork's hunting technique, just slowly moving his bill around, and how he uses his foot there to stir up and disturb any aquatic denizens, and it snaps incredibly quickly shut. Obviously their bills are also very receptive and sensitive, so they can detect vibrations and movements, but very cool to note the two different hunting strategies. I don't think either one is better, because clearly they're both catching fish. Nana, you were asking if they catch amphibians because they're easier to digest. I think it's much of a muchness. I think fish or amphibians are the same for them to digest. Amphibians might be a bit easier. Obviously scales are a bit tougher to digest, I think. But of course they are adapted to the certain diet and their hunting techniques. But I think it's just a matter of feeding on all the possibilities present in an aquatic habitat. So amphibians will be on the menu, reptiles, fish, crustaceans, insects. So it's always kind of a thing, whatever can get swallowed will go down the hatch. I don't think they're too picky about what they specifically eat. Same goes to your kingfishers. Although they generally hunt fish, the aquatic kingfishers, they will readily take any other food source that presents itself. quite an interesting little heron we've got here. I don't think it is necessarily the little heron. It could be a juvenile, but obviously there is also quite a range of different herons and egrets on the eastern side of the African continent. I want to double check my field guide. It almost looks a bit like a rare bird that was spotted in South Africa, the Malagasy pond heron, but that's not a bird I've seen. It's not really a bird we get here, so don't quote me on that one. It's definitely one of the smaller herons. Doesn't look like a squacko heron either. Wemby, you'd like to know, are the hunting success rates of aquatic birds more or less the same? So, no, not really. I think the rates vary enormously between the different aquatic birds, etc. Just due to different techniques. For example, the pied kingfisher hovering over water tends to have will have a different success rate from a grey heron in the shallows, and those two, just comparing those two, are very different from a fishy eagle snatching fish from the surface. I think your success will depend largely on the bird, the prey, water clarity, weather, and even the time of day. Some species may succeed only a small fraction of attempts, but they do more attempts, while others can be quite efficient with less attempts under the right conditions. But obviously, I think if you look at a lot of their hunting techniques, it's quite low energy expenditure, so they can afford to carry on with it for a bit. I kind of think its old name was striated heron. It's been changed to little heron. I think this is a young bird or a juvenile. It just looks a bit weird to me. But yeah, I must say my knowledge of the distribution of the different Kenyan birds is a little limited. I'm still working on getting myself a bird guide for East Africa that I can more realistically double check, but it's not exactly a easy item to come by in southern Africa. Ooh, there's a grey-headed sparrow that's hopped into frame and hopping out of frame now. Miles, you wanted to know, do birds prefer more dry or wetland areas? Look, birds will always stick to the habitat they're more adapted for. I think there's a greater bird diversity in more tropical, wet or wetland areas. I think your diversity is quite reduced in drier, harsh habitats like deserts, etc. But I think there's certain generalists that will also prefer the two, but wetland birds tend to be quite specialized, so you're always only going to find them in wetlands. And it goes for ducks, herons, waders, crakes, don't know what else I'm missing, flufftails, etc. They are quite specialized for that, so you will always find them in wetland habitats. And then of course there are always some generalist birds that will kind of do okay in either or, but just generally speaking, in quite a dry, harsh habitat, you will have quite a reduced species diversity compared to that that of a more wetter, moister environment. If I could kind of put a simple example, the Kruger National Park area generally has about a bird list of about 450 to 500 birds. If you went to the drier side of the continent of southern Africa, your bird list would be, possible bird list is much closer to 150, 200 round about there. There's just a lot less birds that are necessarily adapted for such harsh environments compared to the available food resources that would be in a wet environment, which then supports greater diversity. Anyway, I'm going to leave our busy birds all over the show, and we're going back to founders again. Just quickly reviewing one of the more profound birding websites, Birds of the World. Maybe it could be a Malagasy pond heron. I'm happy for anyone to point me in the right direction if they have a different opinion, but yeah, have a look, let us know, let me know. Quite suspicious it could be a Malagasy pond heron. As I said, it didn't look too much like a striated heron or little heron to me. Quite pretty here at Founders. No rhinos, I'm sure they're still dozing, but some zebras and warthogs, and some springbok antelope in the background there, very pretty. It's actually quite interesting now, as we saw that zebra kind of chase off that warthog. I read a book, or finished reading a book recently about the Addo National Park, and obviously it's quite close to Mantis Founders Lodge, and it was saying in the book how a lot of antelope throughout the Eastern Cape region, or other herbivores, tend to chase warthogs away from water sources. I'm not entirely sure why or what the reason is for that, but I think it's something we see quite a bit on the show, is the different hierarchies at place when it comes to drinking water. all the springbok are quite happily showing us their rears. No one's really got their heads up. Obviously they're also mainly here for feeding. They're such a water sensitive species. Very pretty antelope that we don't always get a privilege of seeing in South Africa. They're quite specialized in the areas they live. Generally quite sporadic and more the western side of the country. I see we had a message from Cornelia Beltensperger. You were saying it was a non-breeding Malagasy pond heron. Well, that's very exciting. Thank you very much for that confirmation. It's not a bird I had ever laid my eyes on. The first time I was kind of reminded of it this week was when there was a sighting in the Kruger. Unfortunately, that bird has disappeared. But very cool that was the case. I thought something was a bit off, it looked a bit different, but yeah, I'm not very familiar on them, so nice to have a bit of help. That's generally what it comes down to in birding, is very familiar with the normal species. When something a bit strange pops up, that's when the bells start ringing. I think that's quite a cool lifer for me at live at the waterhole. I just hope dearly I can still see one in person one day. They're quite a rare vagrant into southern Africa. And the zebra is happily chomping away. At first glance it looks like he's eating the weeds there, but it appears like there's some grass growing around it. I don't think he's specifically feeding on that bush. It almost looks a bit like a thistle or something. And now it looks like there's some nibbling going on that bush a little bit, but it's not really normal to see zebras feed on any broad-leaf vegetation. Excuse me. They are through and through grazers, so they will be looking for grass growing in or around near these bushes. I have seen a zebra eat a marula, and that was not something I thought I would see myself. But yeah, their diet will always pretty much be grass. Never say never, they might eat a few tender shoots, but they always generally go for grass. Mona Leo, You've heard that zebra mothers will keep their newborn foals away from the rest of the herd for the first few days or so that the foal can memorize her stripe pattern. Is it true, and how long does the bonding process take? So yeah, it is largely or relatively true. I see that zebra's eating something that's not but grass, like he did spit it out, or she did. It's not so much like, I'd say, some of the other antelopes that physically hide their newborns in dense vegetation largely away from the herd, but she'll generally keep a bit of distance from the rest of the herd for the first day or so, and I think this gives the foal a chance to learn its mother's appearance, scent, voice, and that unique stripe pattern, etc. Obviously these are all very abstract things for us as humans. I don't think we can understand those nuances, but obviously with animals having such heightened senses, they pick up on them. But yeah, the bond starts forming almost immediately after birth. The foal is usually on its feet within an hour and spends a lot of time staring at and following its mother. So this is the most critical recognition period, is probably the first few days. Often speak about that, there's a word for it, but normally when an animal's orphaned and it imprints on you, that's generally in that time span in which it takes place. If that doesn't happen early on, you tend to have if an animal's orphaned much later in its life, it takes a lot more work to, I don't want to really say tame it if you're trying to rehabilitate it, but for it to be comfortable with you, etc. Off go our zebras into the open grasslands of the Eastern Cape. So great having them here for a little bit. Might be my famous last words. There could be a few more around still. Well, we just have the behind of a earline staring at us. We're going to pop on over to Naledi. Probably not the most flattering view. The animals at Mantis Founders Lodge have been a bit rude like that. They've all shown us their behinds today. This is quite a nice view here at the Naledi Bush Lodge waterhole. Very unique, almost kind of like a well or waterhole. Obviously there's a spill off that runs to the left, but almost quite a deep well or trough that the elephants like to use quite a bit.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
Oh, what a Tuesday morning. Brilliant. Oh, wow.
Alright then, let me show you what you're missing. Our archive allows you to delve into the past, be it yesterday or many years ago. You can visit characters who've left us.
Doesn't ever get old.
This is, of course, The Little Prince, Hosanna, guides who've moved on to other things.
Tingana's walking right in front of my vehicle.
These guys are the sausage tree pride.
Classic stories and wonderful moments. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Would you like to know what an elephant's favourite food is? You could ask me questions like that in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive from the heart of Africa. Over here. Watch Safari Live and connect with nature.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
Quite a beautiful scene, wow. It's almost quite dazzling seeing all those zebra patterns intermingle from the distance. I think it kind of, what's the word, displays or gives a good example of sometimes what they theorize the patterns do with predators, making it quite, I wouldn't say mesmerizing, but confusing. Certainly has an interesting effect. And of course you've got a waterbuck now, and were being a waterbuck. They're slowly moving out of the shallows there, but looking rather happy. But quite a nice large gathering of zebras. I'm sure some birds may pop out at some point. See, even our waterbuck bull is slipping out through the side there. It appears like I assume it's a little grebe, not 100% sure if it could possibly be a coot. Those look a bit small for a red-knobbed coot. It's probably a little grebe. But gathering of zebras is also moving in different directions. I think there's possibly 2 or 3 herds here that have come together. I was actually incredibly wrong. It's a common moorhen that's swimming through there. Looked a bit deceiving from a distance, but yeah, well, that is the common moorhen. I think there's another one up to the left there that's actually walking on the water's edge. Z, you've got quite a nice question there. You're saying, or asking, every time elephants, rhinos and buffalo, and I assume you also mean a few other animals, but they take a mud bath, they must carry away tons of mud on their bodies. Don't know if it's physically tons, but I get your expression. Over the years, do they end up draining or completely reshaping the waterhole by physically removing all the silt, etc.? So they do remove mud from the waterhole on their bodies, but yeah, it's not nearly enough to drain it and carry away tons of sediment over time. But obviously, our sense of time and nature is quite different to what really shapes it. But yeah, most of that mud eventually falls off nearby and it will get washed back in by rain or redistributed along the edge or even blown back in the drier months. But what elephants, rhinos and buffalo do change is the shape of the shoreline. So years of wallowing, trampling and entering and leaving at the same spots. That's what creates those muddy ramps or deepens wallows and alters the edge of the waterhole. And also obviously that's generally how your new waterholes are formed over time, or pans. But yeah, they will reshape it over time and it will start to get bigger and bigger. Yeah, it's quite interesting how these things take place, but it ties in also with erosion and all these other things as water flows to certain areas, and yeah, it's quite interesting. I know, for example, when we, as you were saying, the forming of it, also a lot of that dung, etc., as it compacts, that tends to make that permeable base, or kind of helps retain water to begin with. Because I think a lot of people think it's as easy as just digging a hole in the ground and it will fill up with water, but I've seen it quite a few places where that type of soil is not conducive to retaining moisture or water, and it will actually dry up very quickly. So it takes quite a unique number of circumstances for a waterhole or a pan to form. Even if it is artificially pumped, the foundations need to be correct. Eagle Lover, you're asking, do most animals drink less water during winter, in particular elephants? It depends on where you are in the country. To a lesser extent, yes, but at the same time, a winter in Africa is not, it is cold, but it's also dry and hot and warm. So, even at, let's say, about 20-25 degrees Celsius, there is still, it's quite warm and hot, and there's perspiration taking place. Even the animals don't really sweat, but yeah, so they still need to drink daily. Maybe if it's not necessarily so hot, or it's a bit of a cold front or cold snap, they might drink a little bit less. But if the sun is shining, yeah, they're going to need to still drink and feed, etc. Also keep in mind, a lot of the food they're feeding on is a lot drier in winter, so they will inadvertently require more moisture for the digestive process, compared to summer when everything's quite green, full of moisture, etc. They don't need to drink as often. So, but yeah, at the same time, if it's not very hot, then they don't need to drink as much, but there's a number of factors that influence that. So there was a question that came in asking if crocodiles only hunt in the water or on land as well, and if they need deep water to kill its prey. So yeah, crocodiles do most of their hunting in or near the water, but they are quite capable of catching prey on land. I think it's also a bit of a technicality, because if an animal's drinking at the water's edge and they launch themselves out and grab it, is it in the water or on the land? So yeah, it's more that they use water for their ambushes, etc. But yeah, they're capable of short bursts of surprising speed, especially right at the water's edge, generated from their tail. Even on land, they're known to run as fast, or if not faster than a horse, but of course it's over a very short distance, talking about 3 to 5 seconds. So in the blink of an eye they can move quite quickly, but that's about it. And if that energy is used up, then it's not like they can stop start. It's kind of a once-off burst of energy. But they don't necessarily need deep water to kill their prey. Deep water helps when they want to drag a large animal in and use the death roll, but they can kill their prey in shallow water or even land just by using the sheer power of their jaws. But once again, it depends on what they've caught. It's going to be a bit of a challenge for a crocodile to try kill a zebra outside of the water. Might be able to break a neck or cause some damage, or damage its digestive system, or maybe break something open there, and then the animal bleeds to death like that. But when it comes to drowning it, obviously you just need a sufficient amount of water to actually drown the animal. Always shudder a bit. I think that is quite a harsh death sentence in the bush, but it is the laws of nature. But yeah, crocodiles are truly fascinating animals. It's amazing how adapted and efficient they are. And I mean, if we think about how their general design has not changed very much from the time of the dinosaurs, they are incredibly efficient creatures. That's a nice surprise. I didn't even notice that elephant. He'd snuck in quite effectively while we were zoomed in. Seems like he's come for a bit of a Sunday sip. Looking very peaceful and beautiful in Tao today. He's one of my other top favorites. Would love to possibly one day see this with my own eyes, but we'll see where the wind blows me. I think if not all of the camera locations I would like to see with my own eyes. Maybe a bit of a sort of a weird bucket list challenge. Quite a bit of action shaking up, or taking place here at Tao. And zebras are being boisterous and kicking and biting one another. And poor Impala's been sent running to get out of the way. Doesn't seem like the elephant is enjoying the boisterousness as much. Quite often elephants and zebras look at each other, not necessarily understanding each other's behavior. To the point we often see an Aldonio that don't seem too keen at all on the zebra's behavior. But this fellow's a bit outnumbered, so I think he will just try to keep a distance. There's at least quite a big area of water for him to get something to drink at. Funny, most of the zebras are actually just taking it easy. I don't think any of them are really grazing, but I don't think there is also an abundance of grazing to be had here. It really does seem like a lot of them are making the most of that mineral deposit or alkaline soil, as we discussed earlier. I think that's more the attraction for them in this zone. What I always do find a bit interesting with the crocodiles at Tau is that they never really seem to be in a hunt mode necessarily. We see them attempting to catch anything. Look, it is also at the same time quite a small window of opportunity that we watch the cameras. And a crocodile doesn't need to eat every day either. But yeah, they seem quite docile whenever we see them, and even with antelope approaching to drink, it's not like you see them sliding into the water to set up an ambush or something. But yeah, that being said, it does look quite shallow on the edges of this pan, so it also makes it challenging. Obviously, if there's quite a bit of deep water, or a bit of a steep bank, that's what works well for them, and that's generally what you see in rivers. It gets deep quite rapidly. These pans can be a bit shallower, but these crocodiles also would not be here still today if they were starving to death, so they obviously do catch more than enough to feed them. But yeah, it's just very interesting, something I notice. We generally always see them basking or not doing too much. Funny watching these zebras. There's either a kick or a fight going on, or some socializing, but such a beautiful scene. It's just so peaceful, having the zebras in the background, a very large and majestic elephant bull slowly sipping away. It's quite a quintessential safari scene, just watching everything go about its business. One of those type of scenes where you just stare at it and zone out quite a bit. Well, we're going to leave our zebras to keep milling about. We've got some squirrel action here at Rosie's. Looks like a female squirrel with her offspring still nursing. Almost looks a bit too big to still be feeding on mom's milk, but mom looks quite calm about it, so it might be a little bit longer before this little squirrel is weaned.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
Some rivalries don't need explaining. They're felt. They're etched into history. The All Blacks, the Springboks, head to head in South Africa. Join us for 2 unforgettable tests, from the fiercest rivalry in sport to luxury safari, hosted by a Springbok legend. Rugby and Safari by Wild Earth Travel. The greatest rivalry, experienced the only way it should be.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
This baby squirrel has chosen. He's nursing essentially upside down. Mom does not seem too perturbed, but I can imagine it's I think all mothers could relate to their kids clambering over them. It's amazing, these squirrels are sitting so still. It almost made me thinking the camera had frozen for a second. It was only the slight breeze blowing the vegetation that led me to think otherwise. But amazing how still they are sitting. Obviously it does pay to be as still as possible. Predators have a harder time detecting you. It's quite an interesting bit of vegetation they're in here. I think they're on a leadwood. It looks like a leadwood anyway, it might not be. And then the surrounding branches seem to possibly be a torchwood. Can't tell too well, but it looks a bit like a torchwood. Obviously be a bit easier before when we zoom out, just to see what it is. But nonetheless, some beautiful low felt vegetation. I'm sure these anyway, we're going to leave our sleepy squirrels. I'm not doing too much more now. I'm going to go back over to Tao. Apologies for that, guys. We're actually going to go over to El Dornio. Some big tuskers have come in, so it'll be nice to see them before the show ends. And it was also a leadwood. I was right on that one. The bark is quite unique. Oof, that's always stunning to see these mighty giants of El Dornio, especially right before the show ends. Ironically, it looks a lot like the fellows we had last week Sunday, almost same time, same place. I think I recall the one having a broken tusk, and the other one with quite nice symmetrical tusks, but yeah, I don't want to be quoted on saying that it could easily be a different elephant. The best way to solidify an elephant identification, apart from tusks, is actually the ear markings. That will never let you down. But really does look quite idyllic. Also quite beautiful with all the butterflies on the edge of the pan here, or the waterhole. Kind of a way in which the elephants and the other animals make it available for them. The butterflies won't really come drink directly from the water surface, but they will come and lap up the moisture and the minerals found in the mud, which is much safer for them, and also twofold, they're getting minerals from the sand and moisture. Something I haven't found myself dabbling in too much is identifying different butterflies. Maybe I'll get better at it, but I always find it very challenging to see them sitting still for long enough that you can see their markings. I think that's always the wonderful thing for me of enjoying nature, is you can, especially at a waterhole, sit back and enjoy the elephants. There's beautiful butterflies to look at, trees, grass, and there's just so much to continue learning about nature. It's like almost an unending book. It's got so much to always show and teach. I see this fellow's had enough water. He's on his way to probably take a midday rest. I can't imagine he's going to go feed now. It seems like his friend is also joining him. moving out. Quite good timing. I'm glad we got to see them before the show finished. I don't think it would be a normal live at the waterhole session without a stop at El Doño. But yeah, it was quite quiet for a while, hence why we only came here now at the end. Quite a diversity of butterflies there. I think I see at least 4 or 5, maybe 6 different kinds. If anyone is a sharp lepidopterist or butterfly enthusiast, please feel free to let us know in the chats or comments on what species you maybe see. It's not something I'm well versed in. I occasionally take up the opportunity when I do find a butterfly and make use of it with iNaturalist to try teach myself. But certainly very beautiful creatures. This is something I try to do in my garden also regularly, is to try plant flowering plants or vegetation which sustains their larvae or caterpillars. So they are a very important part of the ecosystem. Pollination, of course. Their larvae feed obviously many organisms as well, so everything's got its role to play. It's quite interesting while we're seeing these butterfly puddle here, which is the term for them lapping up moisture and minerals from damp surfaces. Sometimes they'll do it on fruit. If you put an orange out, sometimes you can attract certain butterflies, and even a bit grossly, sometimes they will do it on animal dung, and there's certain butterflies or moths that specialize on predators' dung or feces. Don't think that's very pleasant, but everyone's got their role to play. It's quite a nice view that we're actually getting of the butterflies. And I think this is also a good opportunity to actually identify them. Normally when they're flapping around or flying, it's quite challenging. It's kind of the same for bird watching in certain ways. If they're at a waterhole, it's almost easier to see secretive small birds coming out into the open. I see Kim Faustina was enjoying the tuskers. It was quite a nice little treat right at the end there. And the Eagle Lover, thank you for joining. Hope you enjoyed the show. But just from my side, thanks again to everyone who joined for the show. Definitely saw quite a few interesting things, some nice unique things. I don't think there's ever a show that's really boring. But thanks again for enjoying. I hope everyone, or joining, sorry. Hope you enjoy this afternoon's drive and have a good week further.